The grand hall of the Galactic Council buzzed with the usual cacophony of translators, diplomatic aides, and the subtle hum of personal shield generators that the more paranoid delegates insisted on wearing. Ambassador Riley Martinez of Earth sat calmly at the human delegation station, ignoring the frantic aide who had just burst through the entrance doors, weaving between the representatives of over 300 galactic civilizations. "Ambassador Martinez!" the aide gasped, finally reaching Riley's side. "Urgent communique from Earth Command. The Corfac Empire has—" Riley raised a hand, not bothering to look up from the datapad displaying the day's agenda. "Is it about their fleet entering the asteroid belt?" "I know." The aide blinked rapidly, his olive skin paling. "But Ambassador, they've sent 847 warships. Their Supreme Commander announced it was time to teach the insolent Earth a lesson in respect. The Council is about to call an emergency session." Riley finally looked up, brown eyes calm behind stylishly archaic glasses that had become something of a diplomatic signature. Taking a slow sip from a ceramic mug filled with actual coffee, a luxury imported directly from Earth at considerable expense, the ambassador merely nodded. 847 ships. Yes, that matches our count. Another sip of coffee. "Don't worry, Jason. It's been handled." "Handled, but—" The chamber's central announcement system chimed 3 times, the universal signal for an emergency session. The Grand Chancellor's amplified voice echoed through the hall. "All delegates to their stations. Emergency session commencing in 5 galactic standard minutes." Riley stood unhurriedly, straightening the perfectly tailored blue-gray suit that had been specifically designed to appeal to the maximum number of alien aesthetic sensibilities, while still appearing quintessentially human. "Perfect timing. I have a presentation prepared." High Chancellor Vexar, a towering, 6-armed Baruvian, whose translucent exoskeleton glowed with the bioluminescent patterns indicating extreme agitation, called the session to order. The massive central holodisplay activated, showing the tactical situation in Earth's solar system. "Delegates of the Galactic Assembly," Vexar's voice boomed through the translation system. "We face a crisis that may destabilize Sector Peace. The Corfac Empire has deployed a substantial battle fleet to the Sol system, home of our newest member civilization. This action violates 17 separate treaties and protocols." The display zoomed in, showing the Corfac fleet, a menacing cluster of red triangles, approaching Earth's orbit. Delegate Zorthan of the Mercantile Alliance rose on his gravity platform. What provocation could possibly justify such an overwhelming show of force against a Level 2 civilization? The Serpentine Merchant Prince hissed, financial calculations already running behind his compound eyes. Earth might be new to galactic society, but their exotic goods commanded premium prices. Supreme Delegate Tessara of the Corfac Empire stood, her metallic scales catching the light. "The humans have repeatedly refused our cultural integration initiatives. They rejected our request to establish 7 permanent military bases on their lunar colony, declined our offer of protective vassalage, and most recently, their diplomatic corps sent back our standard treaty package, with what our linguists have identified as—" She paused, checking her notes. Smiley faces drawn on each page. "This disrespect cannot stand." Murmurs rippled through the assembly. Riley Martinez remained seated, seemingly absorbed in adding a precise amount of sweetener to a fresh cup of coffee. Chancellor Vexar gestured toward the human delegation. "Ambassador Martinez, your world faces an existential threat. What is Earth's response?" Riley stood unhurriedly, touching a control on the delegate console. "Thank you, Chancellor. If I may direct everyone's attention to the display." The hologram shifted, showing a real-time feed of the Corfac fleet's approach to Earth. The ships moved in perfect formation, a testament to the Empire's 4,000 years of military tradition. "As you can see," Riley continued conversationally, "the Corfac battle group is approximately 7 light minutes from Earth. They will be passing the orbit of Mars in approximately... A glance at a slim wristwatch. Another Earth affectation. 43 seconds. The assembly watched in tense silence. The Corfax ships continued their advance. Then, precisely as they crossed the orbital path of Mars, something happened. Or rather, nothing happened. The ships simply disappeared. One moment, 847 warships representing the combined military might of a civilization spanning 27 star systems. The next moment, nothing but expanding clouds of elementary particles, glittering like diamond dust in the sunlight. The council chamber erupted into chaos. "What trickery is this?" Tessara shrieked, her scales flaring in threat display. "The feed has been tampered with." Riley took another sip of coffee. "I assure you, the feed is genuine and unaltered. Verification codes and quantum authentication signatures are available to any delegation that wishes to confirm." Delegate Cracks of the Science Directorate was already analyzing the data on his specialized console. "Confirmed," the avian scientist announced, crest feathers standing erect in shock. "The feed is authentic. The Corfax fleet has been reduced to its constituent atoms." "Impossible!" Tessara slammed her armored fist on the delegation table. "No Level 2 civilization possesses such technology." Riley smiled pleasantly. "Perhaps we should have mentioned that our classification might be somewhat outdated." Halfway across the solar system, on the supposedly minimally staffed research outpost, known as Moliere Station, Fleet Admiral Sarah Thompson stood before a bank of monitors in a command center that officially did not exist. Around her, 200 of Earth's most brilliant physicists, engineers, and military strategists monitored systems that, according to all documentation provided to the Galactic Council, were nothing more than atmospheric research equipment. "Status report," Thompson demanded, her weathered face illuminated by the blue glow of the displays. "Dr. Eliza Chen. No, not Chen." Thompson corrected herself mentally, recalling the woman had recently changed her name after marriage. Dr. Eliza Nakamura nodded crisply. The sleeping giant network performed precisely to specifications. "Admiral, 847 targets identified, locked, engaged, and neutralized. Total molecular disassembly achieved in 47.3 seconds. Thompson exhaled slowly. The Sleeping Giant Project, 18,000 molecular disruptor platforms disguised as ordinary communication satellites, asteroid mining equipment, and even space debris, had been Earth's insurance policy since first contact 30 years ago. While humanity had enthusiastically joined galactic society, they had done so with eyes wide open, fully aware of how often primitive civilizations throughout history had fared when encountering more advanced ones. "Casualties?" Thompson asked, though she already knew the answer. "Zero, Admiral." Dr. Julian Ramirez reported from his station. As designed, the molecular disassembly process was contained to ship hulls and internal components only. All biological material was preserved intact and is currently being collected by our retrieval drones. Thompson nodded. "Status of the remaining platforms. All 18,000 disruptors have successfully reconfigured to stealth mode." Lieutenant Commander Abbasi reported. "Energy signatures are masked. As far as any galactic standard sensors are concerned, they don't exist." "And the prisoners?" Dr. Nakamura brought up a new display. "Approximately 219,000 Corfax military personnel currently in stasis. Memory suppression fields active. They'll remember nothing from about 10 minutes before the disassembly event." Thompson turned to the final station, where Earth's most advanced AI systems were processing astronomical amounts of data. "And our defensive posture?" A holographic avatar materialized, deliberately designed to look like a middle-aged human woman, rather than the transcendent intelligence it actually represented. "All galactic communications channels are under continuous monitoring. Admiral, 7 additional fleets from various powers are on heightened alert. but none have made moves toward the Sol system. I'm detecting significant diplomatic chatter across secure channels. The predominant emotional signatures indicate fear. Thompson allowed herself a small, grim smile. Good, fear is useful. Maintain current alert status. I'll inform the ambassador that Phase 1 is complete. Back in the council chamber, the chaos had only intensified. Delegates were shouting over each other, diplomatic protocols forgotten in the shock of witnessing a supposedly minor power annihilate one of the galactic community's premier military forces without apparent effort. Chancellor Vexar finally managed to restore a semblance of order by activating the chamber's sonic dampers, physically making it impossible for anyone to speak above a whisper. "This session will come to order," the Chancellor insisted, all 6 arms raised in the traditional gesture for silence. "Ambassador Martinez, an explanation is required immediately." Riley stood once more, the picture of diplomatic composure. "Of course, Chancellor. Earth has maintained a defensive perimeter as permitted under Article 227 of the Galactic Charter, which explicitly allows new member worlds to implement reasonable security measures during their first century of membership. There is nothing reasonable about the instantaneous destruction of 847 warships," Tessara snarled, her translator barely able to convert the rage in her voice. "On the contrary," Riley countered smoothly, "our response was precisely calibrated to the threat level. And I must correct a misunderstanding. The ships were not destroyed. They were simply disassembled. No loss of life occurred." This statement caused another wave of murmurs throughout the chamber. Chancellor Vexar's bioluminescence shifted to patterns indicating confusion. "Clarify, Ambassador." Riley tapped another control, and the holodisplay shifted to show fleets of small Earth vessels collecting what appeared to be transparent containment pods. "As we speak, all Corfac personnel are being retrieved, unharmed. They have been placed in temporary medical stasis to prevent the psychological trauma that might result from suddenly finding oneself floating in space. They will be returned to Corfac territory within the week, with no memory of the incident." The Science Directorate's delegate was the first to grasp the implications. "You possess molecular manipulation technology capable of selectively disassembling inorganic materials while preserving organic matter, at a distance of millions of kilometers." Riley shrugged modestly. "We've found it to be an effective security system, completely bloodless. You see? We're really quite proud of the ethical considerations we've built into our defensive protocols." "But such technology," the avian scientist sputtered, "it would require energy expenditures beyond." "I'm not at liberty to discuss the specific technical details," Riley interrupted politely. "I'm sure you understand. Security concerns." The chamber fell into stunned silence as the implications sank in. A Level 2 civilization, barely a century into faster-than-light travel, had just revealed military capabilities that matched or exceeded those of powers that had been spacefaring for millennia. Chancellor Vexar finally spoke, all 6 limbs now held close to his body in the Baruvian gesture of extreme caution. "Ambassador Martinez, the Council must ask, what are Earth's intentions toward the galactic community?" Riley's smile remained pleasant, but something in those brown eyes hardened just slightly. "Earth desires exactly what we have always stated: peaceful coexistence, fair trade, and cultural exchange. We have no territorial ambitions beyond our solar system. We simply wish to be left alone to develop at our own pace, without interference." "And if interference is attempted again?" Delegate Zorthan asked, his merchant's mind already calculating the new power dynamics. "Then we would be forced to respond appropriately, as we did today." Riley paused, letting the statement hang in the air. "However, to prevent such unfortunate misunderstandings in the future, Earth will be putting forward a proposal at tomorrow's regular session. I believe it will address many of your concerns." The emergency session was adjourned shortly thereafter, with most delegations rushing to contact their homeworlds for new instructions. The Galactic Order had just been fundamentally altered, and no one was quite sure what the new reality would look like. Admiral Thompson watched the recorded council session in her private quarters aboard Moliere Station, a rare glass of aged whiskey in her hand. The amber liquid caught the light as she swirled it thoughtfully. "You're playing a dangerous game, Riley," she murmured to the screen, though the recording couldn't hear her. "They'll never trust us now." Trust was never the objective. "Admiral," came a voice from the doorway. Thompson didn't need to turn to know it was Dr. Nakamura. The physicist had a distinctive way of speaking, precise, measured, like every word was a carefully calculated equation. "Come in, Doctor. Drink?" "No, thank you, Admiral." Nakamura entered but remained standing, her posture rigid as always. "The Corfac personnel transfer is proceeding according to schedule. Memory suppression has been successful in 99.8% of subjects. And the 0.2%? Minor anomalies only. Nothing that would indicate what actually happened. They'll likely believe they experienced some form of hallucination." Thompson nodded, taking another sip of whiskey. "And what do you think of the ambassador's strategy? Honesty has never been the preferred approach in interstellar diplomacy." Nakamura's expression remained neutral. "The ambassador's approach is mathematically sound. Game theory suggests that when possessing overwhelming force, there are scenarios where revealing that force creates more stable long-term outcomes than concealing it, at the cost of never being trusted again. Trust and fear can achieve similar compliance results, Admiral, and fear is often more reliable." Thompson turned back to the screen, where Riley Martinez was calmly sipping coffee while the council chamber dissolved into panic around him. "He's going to change everything tomorrow, isn't he?" Nakamura's lips curved in the slightest suggestion of a smile. "That has always been the plan, Admiral. Phase 1, demonstrate capability. Phase 2, monetize it." "Monetize the ability to instantly destroy entire fleets?" Thompson couldn't keep the edge from her voice. "We're weapons dealers now?" "No, Admiral. We're selling insurance." With that cryptic remark, the physicist excused herself, leaving Thompson alone with her whiskey and her thoughts. The next morning, by the station's artificial day-night cycle, Thompson found herself standing before a secure quantum communication array, preparing to join the council session remotely. As one of Earth's highest-ranking military officers, her presence had been specifically requested for what Riley was calling the Earth Initiative. The session began with the usual formalities, though Thompson noted the distinctly subdued atmosphere. Many delegations that typically sent 5 or 6 representatives had reduced their presence to just 1 or 2. Fear of Earth, or perhaps a statement of protest. Either way, it played into Riley's hands. Chancellor Vexar called the session to order, his exoskeleton now pulsing with the slow, steady patterns of forced calm. "This council recognizes Ambassador Riley Martinez of Earth, who wishes to present a formal proposal." Riley took the central podium, the place traditionally reserved for major policy announcements. The coffee cup was conspicuously absent today. This was business. "Esteemed representatives of the Galactic Council," Riley began, voice pitched perfectly to carry through the vast chamber without seeming aggressive. "Yesterday's unfortunate incident with the Corfac Empire has made clear that our galaxy faces a security dilemma. Despite the Council's best efforts, military confrontations continue to threaten the peace and prosperity we all value." Several delegates shifted uncomfortably, but none interrupted. "Earth therefore proposes the establishment of what we're calling the Galactic Peace and Security Initiative." A touch to the control panel, and the holodisplay illuminated with an elegant logo, a stylized Earth cradling stars in a protective embrace. This comprehensive security framework would provide member worlds with guaranteed protection against military aggression, piracy, and territorial violations. Protection. From whom? Exactly, Delegate Zorthan asked, voicing what many were thinking. Riley's smile was serene. From anyone who might threaten them, of course, including, if necessary, Earth itself. This sent a fresh wave of murmurs through the chamber. Allow me to outline the program, Riley continued smoothly. Member worlds would contribute a modest annual fee, scaled to their economic output. In return, Earth would establish a security perimeter around their star systems using our defensive technology. Any unauthorized military incursion would be met with the same response the Corfac fleet experienced: immediate neutralization of the threat without loss of life. You're proposing to become the galaxy's police force? Chancellor Vexar's bioluminescence flickered with uncertainty. Not at all, Chancellor. We're proposing to become the galaxy's insurance policy. Riley's voice remained pleasant, but there was steel beneath it now. Earth has no desire to interfere in the internal affairs of any civilization. We merely offer protection against external threats. Think of it as an extension of the Council's own security mandates, but with teeth. Admiral Thompson, watching from her remote connection, had to admire the sheer audacity. In one elegant move, Riley was transforming yesterday's terrifying display of power into today's commercial service offering. The ambassador continued outlining the program's details: implementation timelines, fee structures, exclusions, and limitations, all presented with the polished assurance of a business proposal rather than a military ultimatum. Ambassador! The Corfac delegate, Tessara, finally spoke, her voice tight with barely contained rage. You destroyed our fleet and now propose to charge us for protection against similar destruction by you in the future. This is nothing but extortion. Riley turned to face her directly. Supreme Delegate Tessara, with respect, Earth did not destroy your fleet. We temporarily disassembled it after it entered our territory with hostile intent. Your personnel are being returned unharmed, and we're even reassembling 70% of your vessels as a gesture of goodwill. 70%? Tessara hissed. We're keeping 30% as compensation for the resources expended in the defensive operation, Riley explained reasonably. Our analysis indicates this is well below the standard salvage rights established under galactic maritime law. Before Tessara could respond, Riley continued. However, had the Corfac Empire been a member of the Security Initiative, this incident would never have occurred. Our system would have automatically warned your fleet that they were approaching a protected zone, and provided safe transit corridors if your intentions were peaceful. And if we had proceeded anyway, another delegate called out, then the same outcome would have occurred. But the Corfac Empire would have received a full refund of their annual premium. Riley replied, without missing a beat. Our satisfaction guarantee is quite comprehensive. The audacity of the statement, treating the annihilation of a battle fleet like a money-back warranty, left the chamber momentarily speechless. Admiral Thompson signaled for permission to address the council, which Chancellor Vexar granted with visible relief at the interruption. Honorable delegates, Thompson began, her weathered face projecting authority even through the holographic display. I speak as Earth's senior military commander. I want to assure this council that Earth's defensive capabilities, while significant, are designed with minimum harm as their guiding principle. Yesterday's action resulted in 0 casualties. This would be our standard in any future interventions. Admiral, Delegate Krax of the Science Directorate asked, given what we witnessed yesterday, what assurance can we have that Earth's defensive network is itself secure? What prevents these weapons from being turned against peaceful worlds? Thompson had anticipated this question. Our systems require multiple authentication protocols from both civilian and military leadership before activation. Additionally, they are programmed with hard ethical constraints. They cannot be deployed against civilian targets, non-military installations, or even military vessels that have not demonstrated clear hostile intent. And we should simply trust these ethical constraints? Chancellor Vexar asked. Chancellor, Thompson replied evenly. Every spacefaring civilization develops weapons. Earth is unusual only in that we have prioritized defensive technologies that preserve life while neutralizing threats. We could have developed more conventional weapons, planet killers, star destabilizers, dimensional rifts, but we chose not to. That choice reflects our values as a species. Riley smoothly took back control of the conversation. The Galactic Peace and Security Initiative is, of course, entirely voluntary. No civilization will be compelled to join. Those who choose not to participate are free to maintain their own defensive systems, assuming they comply with existing Council regulations on military technology. The implied threat was clear to everyone in the chamber. Join Earth's insurance program, or risk being categorized as a potential threat yourself. And what of the Council's own peacekeeping forces? Chancellor Vexar asked. Where do they fit in this new order you propose? We envision a collaborative relationship, Riley answered without hesitation. Council forces would continue their excellent work in diplomacy, mediation, and civil protection. Earth's defensive grid would simply provide backup for situations that escalate beyond diplomatic resolution. The debate continued for hours, with delegations raising objections, seeking clarifications, and testing the boundaries of Earth's proposal. Throughout it all, Riley remained unflappable, answering each question with practiced ease, occasionally deferring technical inquiries to Admiral Thompson. Finally, Chancellor Vexar called for a preliminary vote, not to approve the initiative itself, but to allow Earth to proceed with presenting detailed implementation plans to interested members. The motion passed with 78% support. As the session adjourned, Riley gathered his diplomatic materials unhurriedly, ignoring the mixture of wary and calculating looks from the other delegates. A small, satisfied smile played at the corners of his mouth as he made his way toward the exit, where Jason, his aide, waited with barely contained excitement. "Ambassador, this is unprecedented," Jason whispered as they walked toward the Earth delegation's private chambers. 37 civilizations have already requested preliminary meetings about the initiative. The Mercantile Alliance is offering exclusive trade rights in 3 sectors. The Baruvian Ascendancy has proposed a formal defense alliance, and the Silvani Collective has apparently sent a marriage proposal? Riley raised an eyebrow. A marriage proposal? From their High Archon to, any eligible Earth leadership figure of compatible biology. Their diplomatic note suggests it would merge our biological and technological distinctiveness. Riley chuckled softly. File that under. Requires further consideration. What about the Corfac? Jason's expression sobered. They've formally withdrawn from 3 border disputes and requested an emergency cultural exchange program. Their supreme leader is apparently very interested in Earth literature, music, and cuisine, particularly something called barbecue. Fear makes for hungry work, Riley murmured. Schedule them for next week. And the market reactions? Military-industrial stocks across the galaxy are in free fall. Conventional weapons manufacturers have lost 40% of their value since markets opened this morning. There's a run on Earth currency and investment funds. The Galactic Exchange had to suspend trading on anything Earth-related 3 times already. They reached the private chamber, the door sealing behind them with a soft hiss. Riley finally allowed himself to slump slightly, in the first genuine display of fatigue he'd permitted himself in 2 days. Get me Admiral Thompson on a secure channel, he instructed, loosening his collar. And some actual coffee, not that synthesized stuff. Minutes later, Thompson's weathered face appeared on the secure display. Congratulations, Ambassador. You've managed to terrify and seduce the galaxy simultaneously. I'm not sure whether to be impressed or horrified. Riley smiled tiredly. Both are appropriate reactions. Admiral, how are our guests? The first transport of Corfac personnel departed an hour ago. No complications. Their memories have been adjusted to recall a navigational malfunction that forced them to abandon ship. Nothing traumatic, just embarrassing enough to discourage detailed questioning. And their ships? 70% reassembled as promised. We've incorporated imperceptible structural weaknesses that would cause catastrophic failures if they ever attempted to use them against us. But they'll pass any standard inspection. Riley nodded. And our network? Fully operational and completely invisible again. Dr. Nakamura has implemented the improvements we discussed. Range has been extended by 20%, and targeting precision is now fine enough to remove a pilot from a cockpit without damaging the ship itself. Impressive. Thompson's expression hardened. Riley, we need to talk about what happens next. You've positioned Earth as the galaxy's protector, but we both know the full capabilities of the sleeping giant network. It could just as easily be used for conquest? Riley finished. Yes, I'm aware. As are the 17 other individuals with command authority. That's why the ethical constraints you mentioned to the Council aren't just programming. They're hardwired into the activation sequence. The system physically cannot target civilian populations or non-military assets. Technology can be modified, Thompson countered. Safeguards can be circumvented. Which is why the ultimate safeguard isn't technological at all. Riley reminded her. It's us, Sarah. Humans have had the capacity to destroy ourselves for centuries. We've developed worse weapons than this before. Yet here we stand, still reluctant to use them except as a last resort. That's the true miracle of our species. Not that we can build these things, but that we choose not to use them when we could. Thompson didn't look entirely convinced. And this insurance scheme of yours? Turning the most powerful weapon system ever developed into a commercial service? You don't see ethical issues there? I see pragmatism, Riley replied evenly. The network exists. It cost Earth trillions to develop and deploy. Why shouldn't it generate a return on that investment? Besides, the fees aren't just profit. They'll fund the next generation of defensive research. And perhaps more importantly, they give every member civilization a stake in Earth's continued safety and prosperity. Because if anything happens to us, their insurance policy disappears, Thompson concluded, understanding dawning. Precisely. The best protection isn't just having the biggest stick. It's making sure everyone has a vested interest in you keeping hold of it. Riley rubbed his eyes tiredly. The council session resumes tomorrow. The real negotiations begin then. You've changed the galaxy in 2 days. Riley, Thompson said softly. I hope you know what you're doing. Running a planet was challenging enough, Riley replied with a small smile. Running a galaxy can't be that much harder. After the communication ended, Riley stood at the viewport of the diplomatic chamber, gazing out at the spectacular vista of the Galactic Center Station, the massive, artificial world that housed the Council and served as the political heart of known space. Ships of all sizes and configurations moved in carefully choreographed patterns around the station, their running lights tracing lines of commerce and diplomacy against the velvet backdrop of space. In less than 48 hours, humanity had transformed itself from a curiosity, the newest member of the galactic community, still finding its footing among the stars, to a power that made empires tremble. It wasn't how Riley had hoped first contact would unfold when the alien ships had appeared in Earth's skies 3 decades ago. The idealist in him had dreamed of cultural exchange, scientific collaboration, a brotherhood of sentient beings united in exploration and discovery. Reality had proven more complicated. Some civilizations had welcomed humanity with genuine warmth. Others had seen only resources to exploit, territory to claim, or primitives to subjugate. Earth had smiled, nodded, joined the Council, signed the treaties, and quietly prepared for the worst while hoping for the best. Yesterday, those preparations had been revealed. Tomorrow, they would be institutionalized. As Riley watched a massive Corfac diplomatic vessel dock at the station, no doubt carrying representatives empowered to negotiate emergency entry into the security initiative, he wondered briefly what Earth's path might have been had they truly been the Level 2 civilization everyone had assumed. Would they have become a client state of some ancient empire? A tourist curiosity? A footnote in galactic history? Instead, humanity had done what it had always done best: adapt, innovate, and surprise everyone, including, sometimes, themselves. A soft chime announced Jason's return with the requested coffee. Riley accepted the steaming mug gratefully. "Everything all right, Ambassador?" the aide asked, noticing Riley's contemplative expression. Riley took a sip of the rich, bitter liquid, one small, familiar comfort in a galaxy suddenly grown both larger and smaller overnight. "Everything's fine, Jason. Just thinking about tomorrow." "The negotiations will be intense," Jason said. "Every major power wants preferential rates for the initiative. The economic implications alone are staggering, and the military restructuring across known space." He shook his head in wonder. "You've essentially made conventional armaments obsolete overnight." "Not obsolete," Riley corrected gently. "Just insufficient on their own. The galaxy will adapt. New balance points will emerge. With Earth at the center." Riley turned from the viewport, expression serious now. "Not at the center, Jason. That's important. We're not seeking to rule or dominate. We're seeking to stabilize. There's a difference." "Tell that to the Corfac," Jason replied with a touch of uncharacteristic cynicism. "The Corfac made a choice," Riley said firmly. "They chose aggression when diplomacy was still an option. They chose intimidation over negotiation. The consequences were regrettable but necessary. And now everyone else gets to make a choice too," Jason observed. "Join the initiative or risk being seen as a potential threat." "Yes," Riley acknowledged. "Not a perfect choice, perhaps, but a clearer one than most get in interstellar politics." He set down the empty coffee mug. "Prepare the detailed briefing materials for tomorrow. Emphasize the customization options for different member worlds, the transparency of the activation protocols, and the economic benefits of reduced military expenditures." As Jason hurried off to complete the tasks, Riley turned back to the viewport, watching the endless dance of ships against the stars. In 47 seconds yesterday, the galaxy had changed forever. The real question now was, could humanity handle the power they had revealed? History was filled with cautionary tales of weapons that eventually corrupted their wielders. But history also contained examples of power used wisely, of strength deployed in service of peace, rather than conquest. That was the path Riley intended to walk, the narrow line between intimidation and reassurance, between demonstrating capability and exercising restraint. 847 warships had vanished in less than a minute. Now Earth would spend decades proving that the restraint they had shown, disassembling ships while preserving lives, wasn't just a tactical choice but a moral one. The galaxy would be watching, and Riley Martinez, sipping Earth coffee 18 light-years from home, knew that humanity's true test wasn't yesterday's display of power, but tomorrow's use of it.